a good view of a typical Chianti landscape. Of course, as you move around Chianti, it will vary a little bit, but what's typical is the mix of forest, olive groves, uncultivated land, traditional buildings. There wasn't much construction in Chianti, fortunately. In the 50s, 60s, it was people were leaving the land. Most of the houses were abandoned, so that's when Italy was being constructed a lot. And then now there's zoning laws and forest can be touched, so it helps to protect the beauty of the land, and it's very good. Most of our vineyards are, some you can see, some are just behind that hill over there, but pretty close together. Having said this, each vineyard has a different identity, so Sangiovese really amplifies the differences. So what we pick here from what we pick down there at the vineyard, the last one that you can see, is quite different, because there is more clay than here, for example, and so completely different flavor profile. Just this one across this little valley, for example, have a different slope or exposure. So they're a little bit cooler exposure, this one is better exposed, and so, and of course it depends on the vintage. So we don't go much by vineyard designation, because that wouldn't be that consistent from year to year. Every year we decide what will go in the Riserva. Some vineyards will consistently go in the Riserva, some will be depending on the vintage, so that's a decision we make in the summer. This is typical of how we plant the vineyards now. This is from the year 97, so it's at this point a fairly mature vineyard. You can see the vines are not very big, they don't grow very fast. We use a fairly low vigor rootstock. Sangiovese is a vigorous variety, it will tend to grow a lot. If you use a vigorous rootstock, it will just produce a ton of leaves, a ton of grapes, but you won't make good quality. So you have to be always a little bit more careful with Sangiovese. It's a little bit more challenging than other varieties, a little bit harder, but worth the effort. So here there's about 5,000 vines per hectare, and fairly close density, so each vine doesn't carry many grapes. And this is typical of how we manage the soil. This is part of the whole organic approach. Is we want as much as possible grass growing in the soil. But then you have different needs, so we don't irrigate. As you can see, there's no irrigation. So to leave permanent cover crop, grassy cover would just compete too much with the grapes. So usually we do alternate rows. So one of them has been tilled lightly, and then we'll clean underneath the vines with a special tool that goes in and out. And one row we leave uncultivated, just mowed. So this helps also to build up organic substance in the soil, so which means the vines are healthier. The whole health of the vine comes from the health of the soil, really. So now we're also using compost, basically giving back to the vineyards everything that we take out except for the wine. So we compost the pruning, the wood from the pruning, together with the pomace from the wine, from the grapes. And so in the end, every year we're just removing the juice. Everything else gets composted and given back to the vineyards. So there's no real fertilization. We haven't been fertilizing the vines for years. So the soil takes care of itself by giving back what you take out and by managing the cover crop. So the grass that grows in between will protect, will build up organic substance, and will keep the balance in the soil. Rich microorganisms.
Why are you doing every other rows? I mean, I've seen that a lot of people do that. Is that
alternate
just because
rows.
There will be too much competition if you
Too much competition in this climate, in this soil, if you leave it permanently grassed, which I would like from another point of view, because every time you till the soil, you're using up organic substance. You're basically, burns off. You kill some of the life in the soil, but you have to manage these two different needs, so not too much competition. So then we'll switch. The next year we'll cultivate the one that's uncultivated and vice versa.
I mean, do you see a lot of difference when you pick the grapes from one vine to the other one?
No, not really, because each vine is on the border between untilled and tilled soil, so it's not. Then you see differences from vine to some degree. With Sangiovese, it's like, again, Sangiovese is like an amplifier of differences. So what you are getting is always like some grapes are a little bit more mature, some a little bit less, and plus we don't have one or two clones. We have numerous, so we think maybe 40, 50 different clones, but we haven't identified all of them, so that also increases the variety. And I think it's part of a healthy system, so to have more diversity, so both in the soil and in the vineyard in terms of the vines.
Are those your vines across the hill over there?
Yeah, yeah.